Hey everybody, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, have you heard about this wacky new POS, or not POS, but OS called Android?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, I know we're a couple Apple guys, but
I know.
We're just kidding. We all understand and know about Android.
It's got a cute little, whatever. At least it had a little icon, little dude. Yeah.
I promise we're not just being Apple snobs. We're Apple people, but we're not being snobs about this. My first smartphone was an Android, actually.
Yes.
But Android is a pretty popular platform.
Oh, yeah.
When I was doing a little bit of research for this conversation, 72% of mobile phones are powered by Android, which makes sense because if you're
72?
Well, if you're a phone maker, you don't really have too many other options. If you're not Apple,
Yeah.
Android's pretty much it. I guess Windows might still be out there technically, but there's not too many other options. And again, that's a large percentage of phones that are out there, but 77% of corporations also prefer it as well, which I thought was an interesting statistic about Android. So
there you go.
That's kind of going to be the basis of our topic today. We're going to talk about where we are with Android right now. We know it's become this platform of choice. We're seeing a lot more manufacturers are starting to incorporate it into their devices. We're seeing a lot more customers that are interested in it, but we kind of want to explore why.
Yep.
So we have with us on today our guest Neeraj Pendse from Elo. He's going to help us talk a little bit about why it's becoming pervasive, why it's becoming important not just for mobile devices but for fixed devices as well. How Android may have helped out during the pandemic. Maybe some industries that have been a little quicker or slower than others to migrate and why. We'll talk a little bit about the security side of Android, which is important. Hey, we just had a podcast about security last week. We'll talk a little bit more about that too.
Absolutely.
And then we'll also talk a little bit how Elo has found Android beneficial with their own product line.
We got enough time to cover all this stuff. I think
so.
And we're just scraping the surface on Android, aren't we?
Exactly.
Anyway,
So that's why Neeraj is here. He's gonna make it nice and succinct for us.
There you go.
All that plus our usual value to the VAR and what's tech connecting with us. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today, Neeraj Pendse. He is the VP and Head of Product Management for Elo. Neeraj, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We definitely appreciate your expertise because, like I said, we're Apple junkies, so we don't know as much about Android as we probably should, even though our business has a lot to do with Android. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little about yourself and and what you do day to day at Elo.
Hey, thank you, John and Dean, for having me. You introduced me already. I'm a product guy. So I enjoy geeking out on new technology and new products. And I have been doing this at Elo for about 11 years. So my team, the global product management team, we're responsible for our product roadmaps. A lot of what we've been discussing is Android, and a lot of what Elo has been doing recently is around Android for business environments. And there's just so much. It is actually super, super interesting to think about different values that Android brings to the business ecosystem, and just super happy to be here and talk about Android for business.
Awesome. Well, hey, we picked the right person.
There you go. Yeah. Bingo.
That knows stuff about it. A product guy, a guy that likes gadgets.
We like product guys.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, well, then let's get started here. So, as I mentioned, Android has become pretty pervasive in consumer devices. Again, that 73% or 72% number pretty much sticks out there. And, and also many business mobile applications as well. But we're also starting to see millions of Android devices that are now being deployed and shipped in a fixed state. Not just a phone, not just a mobile computer, but, fixed devices. And obviously that's something that, that Elo plays a lot in. So can you talk a lot about, why Android is very suitable for those fixed devices like kiosk, point of sale, displays?
That is a great question. So, a few years ago, when businesses started using mobile devices for getting work done, Android was an easy choice because Android could offer a customizable device from a manufacturer, and there are many of them make great devices that are specific to applications with different functionality. They're not just phones, right? These are rugged devices. But at the same time, we were thinking at ELO, we were thinking, boy, this is interesting for just fixed compute. Three reasons, just to kind of boil it down quickly. One is customers, everyone, people. We're all so used to the experience that a mobile phone tablet provides. So it's super easy for me to interact with anything on a phone or on a tablet or that kind of interface. So that gives Android a leg up. The second thing is that Android devices can be cheaper. So you can actually deploy, rather than a heavy compute, you can deploy appliances and tablets in a lot more places and stretch your hardware investment that way. And then the third thing is that the developer ecosystem on Android. So if you are, for example, a retailer, you probably have a website, you probably have apps, you have developers that are doing those. Now, what if those same developers, the same apps could be used for, let's say, on location in-store applications? You automatically have synergies related to development and consistency across these various platforms. Because at the end of the day, every brand wants to be consistent with their customers, whether their interactions are in a store, online, on the app, etc. And Android just naturally enables that consistency. So I think all those things are valid for customer technology, for self-service, for point of sale, for check-in devices in hospitals, what have you, hotels. And it's a very natural fit. What was missing was a really good, rugged product that will integrate different devices, etc. So now that over the last few years, manufacturers have come up with some fixed, rugged Android devices, that gap got fulfilled, and we're just seeing a huge ramp in the marketplace of this technology.
Yeah, and boy, he touched on quite a few things there that make Android such a unique thing. I'm going to dive a little bit more into the developer ecosystem because you're right, Neeraj. And when we think about it, solution resellers, you have to have solutions. And so much of what the end users are looking for today it's not just a one-trick pony, as we've talked about. Right. It's got to be more. It's got to be, you got to have that tech stack. You got to have things that you can bolt onto it. And Android really does, I think, have a leg up here. When you think about the overall community and what is being developed on the consumer side and how that can cross-pollinate over to the industrial side. There's a lot of stuff going on in all the worlds that we live in, AR and just stuff like, there's a lot out there that is being developed there. So again, when you think about that developer ecosystem, Android definitely has a leg up here. And then I like where you started off there, Neeraj, with the UI, or so many users, 72% of mobile phones right now use Android. You're talking about a huge amount of population that is already familiar with the operating system. They already know how to navigate it. That is such a huge advantage.
Yeah. Well, and we had that, we actually just hosted a webinar this week on the Omni channel.
Yes.
And the whole idea of the Omni channel is this idea of having a user experience that is similar whether you're at home, on a mobile device, on a computer, in the store. And that doesn't happen if, as to Neeraj's point, if the interface is not the same everywhere you go. If I'm used to looking at a certain thing on my phone or my tablet when I'm shopping, and I go to the store and they have a screen there of some sort that I can use maybe to look up some information or log into my account or get something shipped to home, and it's not the same interface at all, it's completely different. That's a break in that experience.
You wonder if you're in the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this the right app? Am I in the right?
I love using this at home. Why does this suck when I'm here in the store?
I guarantee you that is omni-channel. That experience is going to drive a lot of that adaptation of Android for that reason alone.
Exactly.
Not just big brands, but even small to medium-sized businesses. They want that continuity. Yep. They know that there's premium being put on that overall experience, and they got to be there. Right.
Exactly.
To your point there. Every brand is trying to drive loyalty. Part of driving loyalty is app adoption. If I'm a brand, whether it's if I'm a restaurant brand, retail brand, and I have an app, I want more and more of my customers to have that app on their phones. A familiar interface in a in-store interactive display or a self-order in a restaurant can drive app adoption because you can create callouts and prompts, and the interface looks exactly the same. So it drives the consistency, and I think it's a tool to drive loyalty. which is again another one of those things that just really align with the omni-channel concept. So lots and lots of reasons to look at Android, even if you have not considered it in the past. But I think by now a lot of people have, and they are trying. And this growth, I think, will continue for some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk about the last, year plus now in this pandemic. And, a lot of businesses had to shift the way they think about their business. They had to change their practices, whether it was retailers and hospitality trying to figure out how to still be able to get their goods to customers, figuring out different ways to keep your employees safe or working from home or whatever. How did Android-powered devices help during that pandemic? Are there any specific industries or anything about that versatility of Android that really made an impact?
Yeah, there's actually a couple of things. So every vertical market responded differently. So we almost have to think about by vertical. So I'll speak to a couple of verticals. So let's take retail. Retail has been talking about connecting the different channels of communication with the customer for years, right? Mobile order, curbside, self-order, self-checkout, all these words have been that have been there for 10 years, even if not 10, maybe 5 years. For sure, omni-channel strategy has been something that retailers have been thinking about. But in the last year, for retailers, these strategies just hit light speed. And what happened is all these ideas just accelerated, and retailers that were able to accelerate them did really, really well. So as an example, curbside pickups. So those retailers who were able to do curbside pickups quickly, and a lot of that was about mobile handhelds, about their technology and how it quickly transitioned to provide on my phone a place where I say, I'm here at the store, I'm parking lot 14 in a blue car, and so that the product could be delivered to me. Companies who did that quickly were probably also companies who were thinking ahead on mobile architecture in general, whether fixed or mobile devices, and they did incredibly well through this period. Same thing with self-checkouts. The fewer interactions between employees and customers. So self-checkout in retail took a real big accelerator as well. I was talking to a couple of senior leaders at a major US retailer, and what they said was their roadmap acceleration in terms of their targets was like 4x. Like they had a certain plan of certain technology rollouts, and it was accelerated 4 times in terms of their metrics and hitting their targets on omni-channel type methods to connect with their customers. So retail, everything changed, and it was actually really good for Android and mobile architecture type things. On the healthcare side, I noticed that check-in kiosks and the ability to deploy check-in kiosks quickly, which is an Android thing. But I'll speak a little bit more about healthcare. Healthcare hasn't been the fastest adopter of Android, frankly. And that's one of the things that, when we get into that discussion about what's working and not working in terms of which verticals. But obviously restaurants really suffered, right? But interestingly enough, tomorrow's restaurants, maybe not the last year's restaurant, but tomorrow's restaurants, in terms of how they go forward, the ability to quickly switch between curbside, DoorDash pickup, DoorDash delivery, all these different ways, dine out, dine in, going from 100% dine in to 70% dine takeout. You have to be able to switch your restaurant model quickly to be able to. We now have suddenly 5 different channels for restaurants when there used to be one dominant one. So that flexibility, again, back to your technology investments and how they're leveraged across your apps and self-order, etc. Hopefully that was a longish but interesting answer about how Android helped. But I've seen so many different things happen this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All
absolutely.
opportunity.
Yeah. And I think Android-powered devices, I saw it in the marketplace, and I think you're hitting on it there, Neeraj, in the sense that, that small merchant, medium merchant world, it was an early adopter to the Android technology in the beginning, and it exacerbated itself in a good way, I guess, during this pandemic. I mean, you could really see it. Like there was a local nursery that we go to get flowers and stuff like that went before the pandemic hit. It was kind of a little bit old school. They started getting into it, but I was just there recently over the spring. They're doing curbside, but they have mobile devices now where they can just bring it out and you can pay for it right then and there. I mean, the adaptation, the flexibility that Android brings, and I happen to know that the solution they had, it's there. It's there. And then also, we touched on this, I think, at some points. When you think about the reliability, that was a question around Android as well. But since it really kind of cut its teeth on the small to medium-sized businesses, Neeraj, I don't think reliability is an issue with Android. Do you feel like there's an issue with Android out there?
If the question is about hardware reliability, device reliability, it still is a question. But that's where the field of device available is so wide now.
Yeah.
You can go with a consumer phone and that there is certain life expectancy with that, right? You can go with certain other manufacturers. For example, ELO, we've got devices that are obviously made for business use. And so they are many, many years. And frankly, Android devices kind of don't have hard drives and fans and these kinds of things. So inherently, if you're building it correctly, inherently the reliability, actually, there's a great promise of really good reliability, low power consumption, no fans, no hard drives. Obviously, hard drives are now across everywhere changing to solid state. But in the even 2-3 years ago, most computers shipped with a spinning hard drive, and that was a point of failure for reliability. Android typically doesn't have that, right? So inherently, I think reliability is fine. It's even better. But you have to, as a solution provider, you have to think about price, reliability, reputation of manufacturers, and then choose the right one depending upon what the customer's goal is. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. It makes sense. I mean, I think the OS is reliable. It's pretty rock solid in the marketplace today. You're hitting the nail on the head in the sense that, solution providers, if you're not going in there with purpose-built devices like the ELO M50 or something like that, then I think they already know that's a part of their play. They've got the argument against the consumer phone.
It's an easy story to tell.
Well, at this point, I think it is because, maybe there was some of that early adaptation with Android and consumer devices, even in the small to medium-sized business space, no doubt about it. But I think they're starting to understand the value of a purpose-built device that is ruggedized, that is made for that type of environment.
Well, and I know one big aspect of that too, and this is where Android also excels, is remote management and the idea of being able to easily push out updates and new software, security patches or whatever to all the devices within your enterprise quickly. You have consumer devices in people's hands. That gets so much harder to do. Especially again, if they're not Android, it gets a little bit more complex, where you're leaving it up to individuals to make those updates and changes, and you might have maybe some vulnerabilities that occur because of that.
Oh yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Well, Neeraj, let's you hinted a little bit earlier about this idea that maybe some businesses that were able to make the shift last year very quickly were ones that had probably already started embracing that mobile architecture. But you also mentioned that healthcare has been a little slow on the uptick with Android. So, are there maybe dive a little bit more into healthcare and their slowness and why that's happening, as well as any other industries that you think have been kind of behind the eight ball a little bit on Android so far?
That's a really good question. And I think I'll broaden the question a little bit, if I may, to say how are different verticals looking at Android as it relates to transition? Who's doing a little bit faster transitions? Who's doing a little bit slower than expected, maybe? Because, product guy, right? At some point, you write a business plan and you say, adaptation of Android shall be, and then you have the product and you kind of start observing the trends and you go, wait a second, I didn't expect this would happen. And it's actually just so cool. So I'll geek out on the product part of it a little bit, but retail, we talked about. I think retailers are really dividing themselves into two groups. Those who are really taking this trend forward and those who are kind of continuing on traditional architecture. And I see that both on the enterprise, that high end, not high end, but large enterprises as well as on the SMB side, kind of see a bifurcation. I think the traditional architectures are actually absolutely fine. We have a huge portfolio of Intel and our PC on crash drawer kind of concepts, etc. But we are seeing a correlation with adaptation on Android in retail is somehow correlated with how well they did in the pandemic. How are they adopting to the what we used to call omni-channel? I think now we just call connected experience and those kinds of things. So I do see that in retail. In healthcare, kind of coming back to your point, I actually thought that healthcare would be a massive adopter in Android. And the reason I thought that way was because of two reasons. One, healthcare was e-enabling in a big way and has been for a while. So I thought, hey, doctors and healthcare providers are going to be carrying mobile devices. Maybe they'll just plug in the device and pop up whatever they had on their device to do patient consultation on a bigger screen. They will have check-in kiosks, and they'll walk up, and patients will be able to check in, put in their insurance info for their check-in for their appointment. There are all these use cases all over the place. But I think my observation has been that doctors ended up with kind of iPad and phone architecture a little bit, but the ISVs, the software vendors, have had such a strong play and such a large body of developed systems that change over is just taking longer than what I personally had expected. Again, personal opinion. But having said that, I think the check-in use cases and things where process automation could result in better patient experience are indeed looking good. And I do feel that there are some areas such as kind of the outpatient and I don't know what the right word for it is. I'll just say, facilities that aren't like full-fledged hospitals, things like outpatient services, things like senior homes, etc. Android is making a big inroads into kind of information entertainment kind of arena there. So we're seeing that quite a bit. I think over time this will accelerate. I'm a product guy. I'm impatient. In the same breath, I would mention, John, that one thing I didn't expect that'll grow, that is actually growing, but and that's industrial, the industrial market. We thought, hey, industrial market, big machines, production automation, these things are never going to go Android. This is not an industry that will change easily because it's so complex. You're trying to read pressures and temperatures, open and close valves to automate a production line. This is going to take some time to get out of that idea of programmable logic controllers and all that world that has been the automation of the last, say, 40 years. But interestingly, what happened is this thing called Industry 4.0, which is all machines and all devices in factories, in warehouses, production lines, everywhere connected to the cloud. And that created a really cool Android entree, if you will. And now we're seeing huge growth in industrial. We expect a lot more going forward from the industrial vertical. I'm not happy to talk more about it, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Hey, we might bring you back because I've been wanting to talk a little bit more about Industry 4.0 at some point. And I feel like it's a topic we don't spend as much time on as we probably should be. That might be a cue for you for bringing back in the future there. Did you have another thought you wanted to
Yeah, we've actually been spending a lot of time on Industry 4.0 recently, guys. And we've been studying the market, doing some deployments. So a lot to unpack there. It could be its own discussion.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, maybe one area that you touched on there a little bit, Neeraj, is the sense of automation of certain processes, and I do think Android has an advantage here, just due to the architecture, due to the ecosystem that's out there. Healthcare, to your point, and I would agree with you. I would have thought that healthcare would be ripe for the opportunity to do such things as RPAs and just automating certain portions of the process of going through the healthcare system. We all know the pain points of where the choke points are and how it takes a long time, and I got to do this again type of a thing. And I'm with you. Maybe we'll get there. I think we'll get there. It's just taking a little slower than perhaps we thought. But when you think about it, I do think Android does have that with the flexibility. Again, going back to that whole flexibility in the ecosystem, has the ability to adopt to these small automation type projects very, very well.
But, that probably speaks to the overall crawl that healthcare takes in general.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, obviously, yes, there's definitely an issue with them not adopting this the way they should be. But I think you could say that about a lot of technology and a lot of innovation, that healthcare is always crawling along. And I know a lot of it has to do with where does the money going to come from?
Right.
Who's going to pay for it type stuff.
Yeah.
But hey, I hear this and I think of our audience is like, this is opportunity.
Yep.
This is stuff that you can go and talk to your customers about. These are questions you can throw out there. These are things you can educate them on to help them understand why, hey, maybe you didn't think you were ready for this. You are ready for this, and we're going to help you get there. So, well, then let's kind of shift and talk about the security side of things, because, when we talk about security in the world of mobile and OSs, I feel like Apple tends to always get that notoriety as being secure. You know, like that's their
You can't crack it.
right. That's their big thing. But Android's pretty damn secure as well. There's not any real issues there either. So how do we make sure that we're including that in the conversation when we're talking to folks about how Android can benefit their business? How do we discuss the security side of things?
Yeah, that's a super question. Actually, so the funny thing is, Apple makes the hardware and the OS, right? So they get to make some claims that in the world of Android get complicated because they are dependent upon the hardware manufacturer. So you might say Android is absolutely as secure, but it depends upon manufacturer's behavior. And by that, I mean, how are the manufacturers actually deploying tools to secure the device, whether it's a public device or whether it's a corporate device or personal device. And then the commitment over multiple years behind the release and the purchase of the device. How are the manufacturers supporting OS updates? So if you look at manufacturers of Android devices of repute, such as Elo, and there are other names I'm sure your solution integrators know, then it's a non-issue. But you have to know a little more, right? There's a little more depth known. But the second part of this complexity or confusion around security is that, confusion creates opportunity. I think security and other services around Android are a great way for our channel partners to add value. There are services that can be packaged around maintaining the devices, maintaining security updates, etc., that can be revenue streams because they'll add real value to the end customers, end users, and they'll create some meaningful offerings for our resellers. So there is the security is great if you buy from the right vendors, and security is an opportunity to help your customer add value. That's kind of the 2 points I'd make about security.
Yep, and they're good ones. They're good ones to consider when you're at the table and you're talking about the length of the solution. We just did a webinar recently where we talked about that, the security and some of the questions that you ask around that when you're building out your use case, and that's definitely one of them. It's interesting though. I was reading up on some of what Android operating systems are out there right now, and Pi 9 is still, now this is consumer devices as well. That was released in 2015, still has 31% of the market share out there. So, I mean, your point's really valid, though, there, Neeraj, in the sense that when you're a business, you can't afford to have old operating systems that are not vulnerable. Well, may have security issues. Certainly not up to date with the most recent security issues. So, there's definitely a conversation that you need to have with the end users around that and why it's so important to have a roadmap. If you're going to buy the hardware, you need to have a roadmap that it is staying secure and with the most up-to-date operating system along the way.
Yeah, there's a couple of statistics I found when I was digging into this that mentioned that about 3/4 of multinationals prefer Android. That was kind of that 77% mark we noted earlier. And part of the reason they said is that there is 8% fewer phishing incidents and 5% fewer issues with back-end integration, which I know this sound like small numbers, but when you're talking about multinational corporations,
oh man, yeah,
even 2% less of something or more of something can mean millions of dollars one way or another in a business. So I would think even cutting down 8% of phishing incidents and ensuring that there are fewer problems with integration on the back end is all going to be part of that security puzzle that makes things feel a little bit better, a little more secure, and potentially saves a business a lot of money on the back end.
Good point.
So,
good point.
Well, Neeraj, let's let you talk a little bit about Elo and what you guys are doing over there. Why is Elo, or how rather, has Elo found Android to be very beneficial in their product line? It seems like more and more of your products that are coming out are very focused on Android. I know the M50 was a recent release, so tell us a little bit about how Android's helping you out at Elo.
Sure. Yeah. So the M50 is the fourth generation of Elo's Android product line. So we started in about 2014, 2015 with our first Android products. And, that was born out of the simple idea that glowing rectangles everywhere would be the way the future will look like, because people would want to connect with businesses in various situations, whether in their home, online, and in mobile environments with their phones or with displays. So we thought, hey, this is interesting because Android will deliver for a much lower cost a customer experience that everyone is used to. Kind of the point I was making at the beginning of this. So we started down this path, and then we realized that more and more enterprises were getting interested in this because of the reasons we discussed about commonality of brand experience and developer ecosystems and so on. And so now this has grown. So for SMB point of sale with all kinds of integrations, payment integration, printers, etc. So we've been investing a lot in getting all these integrations done on the base Android, which is, again, made for a phone. It's not made to drive a printer or kick out a cash drawer. But we've done all that integration. So now we're on our fourth generation. So we're growing our selection of devices to two different options at kind of a value option and a performance option. So, with growth in kind of the population of devices, we can invest in choice for our customers, right? We're going to sell a small number. You probably want the same spec and just have the factory make one spec. So that's just growing the offerings. And the second thing we're working on is adding value-added services on top, which I think will be super interesting for our resellers and integrators, because they can take these services, whether it's just the basic Elo View management or additional services like security updates. We're working on some facial recognition options, etc., and creating these service offerings that we will make available to our resellers, and they can take these kind of service offerings, package them for a customer, and that creates a revenue stream for them, frankly, because value added is going to create an opportunity of our integrators to extract revenue for that value. So that's kind of the two things that we're working on as we go forward. But fourth generation, so we're now very sophisticated with what we do. The M50 is a great example of that sophistication. And you're going to see a lot more products coming out in the next couple of months, actually.
Well, I like both of that you were talking about there, and obviously you guys are smart guys over there and doing the right things. But
sometimes
there you go, device footprint. I mean, we've read about how Android brings that to the table. When you think about the widest selection of devices available, look, if you're a technology integrator, you want to have as many options as you possibly can, because when you walk into a customer, every customer is different. We know that every solution is going to be a little bit different. So Android is definitely offering that. But I want to dive a little bit farther, Neeraj, into where you were going with your value-added services, because man, do I love that. And of course, we have a lot of resellers that are looking for, when you think about the traditional reseller, not a lot of them are MSPs that come out of the IT world that are used to doing managed services and stuff like that. We still have an abundance of resellers out there that are just project-based. They go in, they put in a project, they move on to the next project. But when you look at something like Elo View and its ability to help a reseller get into the world of managed services, I love that. I mean, in the fact that, but you can do it in so many different ways. I mean, you can do content delivery services. You can do device management, as we just talked about. Yes, you can manage the OS with them. You can do remote provisioning. There's so many things that you can offer now once you start getting into that value-added services that it's really key for resellers. So talk to us a little bit more, Neeraj, about that, or what kind of adaptation are you seeing from resellers there? Do you have any good news cases where you kind of approached the reseller and now they're starting to get even more business based on what you guys are building into your solution there?
So that's a great question. We do have some resellers who have kind of taken that step of sophistication.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, EloView is a management platform for Elo Android devices. So it's super simple. You log in, you add the device by serial number, and then you're able to manage the device security settings, content, as well as kind of the device settings. So you can turn the devices off and on at a certain schedule. You can set apps to download to the device. And the idea of EloView came from the fact that business devices are typically not managed by the user of the device. So your phone, you manage it, you use it. But the cash register, the kiosk, they're used by employees or by customers, but they're managed by somebody else. So we needed to take the settings page, if you will, of the device and turn it back around to the cloud so that it could be accessed. And that's what EloView does. What some of our resellers are doing is, and EloView is a per device, really small fee per month. What some of our resellers have done is they acquire subscriptions from Elo for EloView, these kind of small dollar, but using that as a enabler, they are able to create a managed services contract with their customers that says, we'll take care of this network of devices for you. So they become the network managers, and the customer gets the benefit of having remote managed network, so that stays more reliable, because something goes wrong, the reseller might even detect it before the customer did and fix it remotely. And if they were able to fix it remotely, the cost of your managed services goes down, right? Because if you have fewer roles to get to the location, swap out, fix things, if you save half of them by doing remote management, you're going to be able to create a really lucrative offering for the customer, and on the back of a technology like EloView. So that's just the base technology. Some resellers are taking kind of this view that, hey, I have the EloView and I will sell it to the end user, and certainly those cases exist, and that's fine. I mean, that's a subscription sale through the channel. We work through it, and it's fine. But I think the larger opportunity is to take the technology, create a managed services offering, and because that can be very lucrative. We have several examples of, in fact, your resellers who are doing that with very large name brand grocery stores, etc. And they can even give end customers specialized access. So the reseller could hold the account, the keys to the account, and then end customer IT folks can have access to it so that they can log in, get the reports, etc. from EloView, and it's all kind of managed under the banner of the reseller. So hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Nothing better than co-managing with your partner there. Look, it opens up opportunities. It's a great way to start dipping your toe in that whole area of managed services. It's a win-win for both.
Yeah.
The end user wins, the reseller wins. There's more stickiness. I mean, come on. It's good.
Once
good
again,
stuff.
It's all about opportunity, and that's what we're big fans of
Bingo.
here. So. Well, I hate to move on because this has been a great conversation. We could definitely bring Neeraj back anytime to dive further into some of these topics. I think.
Yes.
But we do want to get to our recurring segments. Before we do that, as always, I want to thank our founding members and our sponsors here on the TEConnect podcast, of which Elo is one. We thank you for your support on the show. And hey, this is our 50th episode.
5-0.
We've made it to 50 episodes.
Is it gold? What are we?
That's the golden anniversary.
Golden anniversary.
Yeah, we need to get like gold-plated microphones or something.
Marco, can you work on gold-plated microphones?
He'll just use your credit card to do it.
Oh, that's
so,
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Can I have one too, by the way?
Sure.
really
Yeah. Why not?
this. And, coincidentally, this is Elo's 50th year.
Oh,
Elo
well, there
was
you go.
founded in 1971.
We planned that.
And we are celebrating our 50th anniversary.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Sounds like some marketing synergy.
There you go.
Exactly. All right. Well, hey, if you want to reach out to us, first of all, if you've been watching and listening to this episode for 50 episodes, I'm going to assume by now you have an opinion about us.
Yes.
And if you've been sticking around, I'm assuming it's a good opinion.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We want to hear from you. So if you're an Apple Podcast listener, I know that's where the bulk of our audio listeners come from. Please give us a 5-star rating review, or a 5-star rating at least on Apple Podcast. Please leave us a review if
There
you
you
can
go.
as well. We might even read some of those on air. Tell us what you've enjoyed. Tell us what your favorite of the 50 episodes so far has been. We'd love to hear that kind of stuff from you. You can also, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, leave us a comment if you'd like. And if you want to reach out to us, if you have some opinions about the show, some questions, or maybe some suggestions for future topics you'd like us to cover, you can find us on Twitter at TechConnectPod. You can also email us, techconnect@bluestarinc.com. All right, well, let's wrap up, as always, with our favorite segments. Value to the VAR is the first one here. This is where we kind of try to distill our conversation down to a takeaway for our VAR audience. I feel like a lot of this conversation has been about opportunity and places we can go. But, Neeraj, I want you to maybe point out what are some specific opportunities that you're seeing in the market where Android's going to help enable like the next level tech and innovations and trends that are happening?
Yeah, so these are great. This is a great question. So I would say that in this, as the restaurant start to open up, I think we're going to see a wave of investments there. I think software vendors and software vendor reseller combos that I'm seeing, I think they are going to see a lot of opportunity in specific segments in SMB, in the SMB restaurant space. I think that's a great way forward. I think I mentioned earlier, the industry 4.0 trend is going to, in fact, several of our resellers are telling us that they look at industrial as the biggest growth market for going forward in the future. So we're really interested in how large companies that are adopting industry 4.0, how does that trickle down to smaller kind of industrial organizations and warehouses and so on. I think that's a great opportunity for our resellers. And the third thing I would mention is right now, people are, I think, more and more interested in buying platforms and solutions and thinking less and less about single point. Used to be that I want a gift registry, and that was a project that was completely disconnected from the time clocks that I wanted for my employees and the price checkers. And we're seeing across multiple retailers that they are aligning around a specific platform, and then different use cases are just different windows, right? Android enables us there, but it's not necessarily the only one. So I think resellers, it would be good for our reseller community and solution integrator community to think about how the overall technology strategy is evolving rather than just one use case, one project. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, I totally agree with you. When you think about it, I mean, we've talked about the flexibility of Android that brings to the table, and so when you compound the opportunities that are coming out of this pandemic, and I agree with you, Neeraj, in the sense that we know there's money out there. There's money coming from Fed. There's money. There's going to be opportunity out there to bake in some new solutions, and I think the optics maybe have changed a little bit. You know, it's not a single solution. They're maybe looking a little bit more holistically. If they're going to implement a new system, then why don't we look at the holistic type of thing, the flexibility that Android brings? If you're not into it already, if you're not tapping into that ecosystem, you need to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so.
I have really nothing else to add except to just say, hey, if you're looking for some help, folks like Neeraj at Elo, BlueStar, we're happy to help you out there. We will make this happen. There's opportunity. It's time to go for it.
There you go. Yep.
All right, well, hey, let's wrap up with our favorite question each week. What's tech connecting with you? This is where we talk about maybe what's happening in the world of tech, science, innovation, something that's caught our eye, something we're playing with or using. Neeraj, I'll start with you. What's tech connecting with you right now?
All right, that was actually an insightful question when you guys mentioned it to me. And, you know, I spent some time thinking about it. It's AI. For me, I think AI just represents for the next 10 years such a big opportunity, but such a big kind of scary threat in a way. So technologies, it's almost like the steam engine now, because you could really go crazy with what that represented. Was it 1868 or something, whenever they built the steam engine? Because what do people want in this clutter of information? I want to get out of these 6 devices that are around me to a world where everything is connected, everything is really relevant to me. Because right now information is being very, very cluttered. I think everyone is seeing actual, impacts of that, weighing down on our mental health, etc. I think AI can really organize the world and the world's information for us because there is just too much right now. But on the other hand, I think there are some serious issues with trust and safety and privacy and so on. So, back to where there is issues and confusion and concerns, there is opportunity. I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see a lot of innovation there. You're going to see people like even people like Elo, the devices and software people, start to kind of think about how does that affect us. And you will see over years, I'm not saying this is an impending launch or anything like that, strategies that harness the power of AI into environments that we are typically seeing. So that is super exciting to me right now.
Awesome.
That is cool. And we've talked about AI. There is that dark side of AI, but I've been maybe backing myself off the cliff a little bit in the sense that AI
it's not all the robot apocalypse.
No, it's not. Yeah, it has so much potential in helping humanity out,
Right.
especially with a lot of the mundane things that you see in a working environment, labor environment, and maybe freeing up us as a population to love or be a little bit more emotional and stuff like that, be more human. I'll go there.
There you go.
Rather than just being toiling away. So maybe there's some hope out there. AI is interesting to everybody, I think.
I do like that hopeful angle.
Although I was listening to another one. AI has been around since 1995 or so.
Right,
So,
right.
I mean, it's been around for a lot longer than I had imagined. I thought it was just like within the last 5 years. Oh no, it's been around for decades.
around,
Anyway, yeah.
All right, well, Dean, what's
I got
TEConnect
a headline for you here that it grabbed me, and I'm like, no, really?
Oh, no.
All right, Brazil and international scientists have rejected Russia's Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine because lack of transparency around the clinical data. Okay, so that's, Russia, right? Lack of that. But here, listen to this one. And alleging the vaccine carries a live version of a virus that can cause the common cold. So you've got Russia. Oh, we've got a COVID vaccine you can have, Brazil. And Brazil's like, no, there's no data around this. And oh, by the way, we looked at it and it's got a cold virus.
So really,
what is up with that?
Wait, you don't want to get the COVID vaccine because you're afraid it might give you the cold.
Well,
Which, on the scale of things to be worried about, are two very different.
all I'm saying is, what grabbed me about it is like, why would that even be in there? Now, I read a little bit more, and it gets into the whole adenovirus, and there's the way that they manufactured it, but the fact of the matter is, right.
I mean, trust me, I understand being hesitant about what Russia's doing here. They've been not very transparent about any of this.
Exactly.
Completely understand. But also, Brazil's one of the biggest hotspots in the world, too.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, like, I don't know, maybe you take a chance on this one,
So you're going to get the cold, but you won't get
I know, that's interesting.
Just why are they doing? And why is that even a thing? I don't know.
I
Anyway,
mean,
I read that headline. I'm like, what? Really? Seriously? Are the Russians doing it? What are they doing? Anyway, go ahead. What's that connecting with you?
So this is one of my little bit tech beef, sort of, in a way.
Tech beef, yes.
Remember we had Gene Halsey on maybe about a month or so back, and we're talking about how tech shapes society. And he referenced this idea of sometimes corporations that want to push a type of technology onto people that they're not necessarily really ready for or are actually really interested in, but just because it's cool and new and we can do it, we're going to shove it out there and push it down people's throats and try to make them adopt it. His example was 3D television.
Right.
When there was the big boom in 3D in theaters.
Everybody had to have it.
Which was mostly just because of one film, Avatar. And then suddenly everybody thought all 3D had to be the big thing. It was a big deal for a few years, and now no one cares about it anymore.
Because Jaws 3D was a flop. But anyway.
That was like 40 years ago, yeah. So, so we put those TVs out. No one really wanted them. No one cared. It was just not an experience that was useful to users, and the demand was not there for it.
Right.
I have another one that I feel like maybe heading that same route.
All right.
Maybe this is just me, but foldable phones.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And this is timely because, that's only something that's happening with Android makers right now for the most part.
For the most part,
this
right.
idea of like these phones that like you can fold up, like you fold it out and it's like almost like the size of an iPad or something, or, make it a little bit bigger than it is before, fold it up something more compact to fit in your pocket a little better. I don't understand the point of this. I don't understand who's asking for this. It's not something I find particularly practical or useful. It seems like more one of those just to say
because
you've
we
got
can
it.
do it. Because
Right.
we can look how cool this is. We can
Right.
fold the screen. Yeah, but do I really need that?
Exactly. And and I can see applications for this type of technology somewhere in the future that makes sense, like some sort of digital or, interactive paper of some sort.
Right.
Like say you're
Yeah.
an architect or something and you want to go show some plans somewhere.
So you fold it up.
And you can
right.
you can have something that's folded up in your backpack in your pocket, open it up, spread it out, pull up some images, be able to manipulate and do things on the fly. I feel like there's some future technology around this that this might lead to that's going to be useful. But as a consumer and as just someone who wants a phone, I don't understand the purpose of it being foldable.
There you go. Well, we got a product guy, Neeraj. So Neeraj, don't do foldable. We don't need foldable on your M50 right now.
I don't see the and if this happens, and I'll promise I'll take it back. I don't see Elo putting out like the foldable touchscreen display anytime soon. But
I've lived through the flip phone.
Right.
Was it the 2003? The flip phone was really cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then it wasn't, right?
Exactly.
And the foldable phones are kind of reminding me of the flip phones. And but it's interesting, right? It could just be a step in technology because companies and the world needs to step through things. Because the paper that you wanted to crumple up and write on and make maybe a paper dart from, maybe to get to that, we need the foldable phone.
Foldable phone, yeah.
So I was thinking about it. I think it's going to end up being a little bit thicker than I would want to carry in my pocket. Right now, I have an iPad and an iPhone, and I carry both of them when I travel, etc. Because one's for one thing, the other one's for another thing. Maybe there is something there, but right now it doesn't feel like it's thin enough.
Yeah.
So you may be right, John. But we'll see. It's for sure it's a step.
Can you do origami with this foldable phone?
Not yet, at
Maybe
least.
that would be useful, to create a little whatever.
Useful, but worth spending like $1,000 on? I mean, come on.
I think we're done here.
Yeah,
okay.
All right. Well, that is what's tech connecting or not tech connecting with us this week.
you go.
Unfortunately, it is time for us to unplug. Neeraj Pendse from Elo, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate your insight today.
Thanks, Neeraj.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. And be back anytime you
Awesome.
want.
Definitely glad to hear it. Well, for Dean Reverman, I'm John Martin. Until next time, folks, stay connected. Elo is bringing decades of touchscreen experience to the palm of your hand. Introducing the M50 handheld mobile computer, an enterprise-grade Android device built for efficiency and connectivity. With a 5.5-inch HD touch display, integrated 2D barcode scanner, Android 10 OS, and a rugged design for commercial use, the M50 is ready to seamlessly integrate via EloView or the MDM of your choice. Long battery life, quick charge, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or 4G communications, and plenty of accessories make the M50 a bold new choice for enterprises like warehousing, retail, healthcare, delivery, and more. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or contact BlueStar's Elo team.